morning, everyone. I know we're broadcasting to the Basque Country, so to those in the Basque Country, buenos dias. My name is Bob Robertson. I'm with the University of Phoenix. I'm located in Tampa, Florida, and in Orlando, Florida. I have some comments.
Sit here.
Sure. I have some comments about a system from the Young African Leaders Initiative that I will share with you this morning. And before I do, I want to tell you that I have been in Europe for approximately 1 month as a Fulbright scholar. And of interest to this conference, I was at the University of Ljubljana talking to them about online learning, interestingly, to administration, to faculty, and to staff. They have announced a joint MBA program with a university in India, and now with approximately 3 months to go, they're trying to figure out how to deliver that online. I would have anticipated that they had thought about that before, but they have not. So they're working desperately to ensure that this executive MBA will be available partly online and partly face-to-face starting in September. Interestingly, the program is oversubscribed. Many business people in India are interested in a MBA program with a European university, and the opportunity to do that in a flexible manner with some online is particularly important to them. In any event, it was a very enjoyable experience, and I'm delighted to be here today with you and Udima, and thank you for the warm welcome to Udima, and also thank you to Guide for the conference. So the context of the presentation will be to give you a brief overview of online, just 1 or 2 slides. We've already seen the concept of MOOCs introduced here. I would like to just give you a quick overview of that and also move to SPOCs, which I think is the kind of way of the future, as we've heard from our introductory speakers, and then in particular focus on this Young African Initiative, simply as an example of what is happening in online. Some of you may have seen it, and if you have, I think it might be of interest to you. If you've not, I'd encourage you to take a look at it, because it's only been available for approximately 12 or 14 months and already has attracted about 250,000 subscribers to this network. So I will just cover those briefly, and I will be here over the next day or two if anyone has any questions or comments. So one of the points I wanted to start with, and this is a US context, but we see an increased number of American students taking online courses. Last week, or sorry, about a month ago, I was at a conference in Florida at the governor's office held. And the governor in Florida is interested in pushing online learning, in part because Florida is growing very fast. Florida has approximately 1,000 new residents every day coming into the state. So that's an incredibly high growth rate. And if you think about the cost of that to the development, for example, of high schools or universities, Florida simply cannot afford to keep up with that growth rate. One of the responses in Florida is that increasingly high school courses will be online. In fact, currently in high school in Florida, you have to take at least 1 online course, at least. Most people take 4 or 5, but you must take at least 1. Also, universities are moving in the same direction at the request of the governor's office. Florida is not funding public universities at the same level as it did in the past. It's reducing funding, and as a result, all of the state universities, the big ones, the University of Florida, Florida State, are increasingly moving programming to online, including community colleges, by the way. So one of the things that they are looking at in Florida as well is the introduction of what are called MOOCs, massive open online courses. So there would be consistency of courses delivered across all of the university framework in Florida, as opposed to everyone doing their own. And they see that as an opportunity for more efficiency. We could argue whether that's appropriate or not, but that's what's happening in the state. You know that these MOOCs are currently open admission. They're previously free, but they're starting to charge now for some MOOCs to get a certificate of completion. And they're primarily built by elite universities. So for example, if you decided you wanted to do a MOOC, which they have done at the University of Ljubljana, I said to them, you have to be invited to produce a MOOC. You can't simply do it. You can build one, but not under the Coursera platform unless you're invited, which kind of surprised them. But so to date, more than 25 million people have actually taken a MOOC, and if you haven't taken one, I suggest that you try it. It is for free. It's interesting to take. But only 4% have actually completed the course. So the completion rate is very, very low, which indicates, I think, some things which we can cover at some point in the conference, but it's an extremely low rate. Now, having said that, recent surveys suggest that many people feel that MOOCs are beneficial. In fact, almost 90% of people who have taken a MOOC report that it's been of some value to them. It might have been getting a raise or having a professional development credit in their portfolio, or even possibly in starting a new business. So for the most part, people who have taken a MOOC have felt that it has been beneficial. I've taken a number of MOOCs myself, and I think it's been helpful for me to see how the technology has been used, and it's also been helpful for me to look at professional development in an academic sense. About a third of the people who take MOOCs are claiming that they are looking to achieve some form of academic goal, possibly through the MOOC, possibly through something else. And about 87% suggest that there has been some intangible benefit, like gaining knowledge in their field. So most people are relatively satisfied with the MOOCs. Key questions that we need to respect in terms of MOOCs are how can we support learners in MOOCs to try to achieve a better retention rate, because the retention rate is still very, very low. Can we make the MOOCs stackable? And in the US, we're seeing that some organizations are doing that. So for example, if you look at the Wharton School of Business, they've started to put packages of MOOCs together, which will allow you to get a certificate in entrepreneurship, for example. They do charge a little bit for that, but it's a very nominal rate. And also, are people who engage with some MOOC content without completing the entire course, are they actually realizing career and educational benefits? So from MOOCs, and we heard this earlier, people are moving towards SPOC, S-P-O-C, which is small private online courses. And personally, I think this is where we will see a lot more activity over the next few years, and this is kind of where this presentation is going. So essentially, these are courses that are tailor-made for a particular company, and they may have credit attached to them, or they may not. And so, for example, in some instances in the United States, and globally, if you're looking to get a professional recertification, you, in some cases, can do it online. So, for example, I'm a member of the American Planning Association. Each year, I have to recertify. I have to take some additional credits. In the past, I would have to physically go to some presentation or to some course and get credits for that. Increasingly, because most people in that profession are busy, like all of us, you can simply do that online. And so that helps to recertify in that field. So these kind of SPOCs, which we see, are aimed at those types of things, at professionalization and other things. One of the examples, of course, is our friend, a very famous Spanish restaurant called McDonald's. I'm sorry, that's a joke. It's an American restaurant. But I see it's just down the street here. So McDonald's has many new employees, starting all the time, as you can appreciate if you know the business plan that they have. And so new people are starting all the time. And so McDonald's, rather than having a small meeting of training for these people, have increasingly put their training online and developed SPOCs for new people to come in. And the new training would include things like health and cleanliness, customer service, how to manage the accounts depending on your level in the restaurant. But McDonald's is simply an example of that. Many, many other companies are doing the same thing. All of what previously had been face-to-face training is increasingly being put online, including things like ethics training. So they're seeing that the online has an extremely good benefit for them. In many cases, these types of corporate trainings are being packaged and actually being given credit for university credit. And so not only are they providing corporate training, which is of value to the company, but they're also being transferred to credit for possibly moving on to a degree. And you can see many universities in the US are making those professional credits stackable towards a degree. Another example is a network called NeighborWorks in the United States. It's a nonprofit organization. It primarily deals with urban regeneration in cities. And so these types of courses that McDonald's have been tailored to NeighborWorks, and they look at how to develop the community, how to build corporate leadership in the community, how to look at financial management, because again, NeighborWorks is primarily volunteers. And so you can't say to these volunteers, look, I want you to stop work today and go to a university and take a degree or take some courses. They just can't do that. So NeighborWorks is a volunteer organization, and they increasingly use online to help them. We see a lot of international partnerships around these types of initiatives, and the example I just gave you in Ljubljana is a very good one. They're working with a college in Delhi to offer a series of linked courses, primarily around executive MBA at the start. And so, in fact, I will be teaching some of these executive MBA classes. I will physically not come to Ljubljana to do that, nor will I go to India. I will do it online. And I will use video methods to do that as well, by the way. So, in fact, I have a course currently which I'm offering in Vietnam, in Ho Chi Minh City. I've been in Ho Chi Minh City this year, but the course now is via online methods. Let me skip to the case example because I know we're on a timeline. So the case I want to share with you is called Yali, the Young African Leadership Initiative. And again, I'm not here to promote Yali, but I think it's a very interesting example of where some online training is going. And I would encourage you to look at this site. It's done by the United States State Department. And it really is focused on African youth. And if you look at the data, African youth represents a very large cohort, and yet unfortunately they don't have access to good educational opportunities. And so Yali is an attempt to provide some courses to them for free online using various devices, primarily handheld devices. And so the technology to support that, if you go and look at the site, I think is fascinating to me, and I'm sure to you because you're interested in online learning. So this was launched by the president in 2010. The online courses component only became available within the last, I think it's 2 years, and again, there's about 250,000 people who have taken them. And the intent is to strengthen things like democratic governance, things like global warming, for example. They have a course on global warming, a variety of things like that, but the intent is to build capacity specifically in Africa. But you can take the course from any place in the world. So these are supported by the United States Embassy, and in terms of the courses themselves, because I want to stay on time, there's about 18 what they call new lessons, and so you can go into these various lessons and you can actually earn a certificate. I think that's a really important piece because everyone wants something to document that they've completed something. And so if you actually go through one of these Yali courses and you watch the videos, you can actually take an exam at the end of the course. And the exam is user-friendly. So if you don't pass the exam, it tells you what you did wrong, and then it allows you to retake the exam. So it's not a traditional, kind of learning experience where you have to have, like in the UK, 50% to pass. It encourages you to keep coming back to learn. But in any event, once you've completed that and you've passed the exam, it allows you to generate a certificate with your name on it, which many people find a nice incentive for this type of course. And so the courses are designed to build capacity, as I said, and the number of students, I have a question mark there because it's growing so fast. And so the most recent data that I heard was about 247,000 students, but the question mark was because there's a number of students in process, and so it is growing extremely fast, and it's a very interesting technology. So a lot of people complain about the fact that some online courses are extremely difficult. This one's very intuitive. Even if you're not an online expert, as I said, you can use your handheld device and walk yourself through the lesson. It shows you step by step what to do. It essentially has a video component to it. I would say as a critique that the biggest concern I've heard about the video lectures is that they're based on American experts, and they perhaps should have more global experts. But in any event, as I mentioned, it allows you to take a quiz at the end. And again, here's the prompt, so it says check your answers, try again. So from that point of view, the attempt is here to have you proceed through the program kind of regularly. And then once you complete, you can generate this certificate. So again, just from a kind of wrap up, the Yali network has a broad sense of courses. Leadership is one that's very heavily subscribed. Entrepreneurship, how to start a small business, how to manage people, types of courses that you normally, in some cases, would not have access to, and that's what they're really designed to do. So in terms of summary, my sense is that we're seeing a real emergence of SPOCs. They're aimed at a particular audience. I would suggest that notwithstanding the big numbers, this Yali example is in fact a SPOC. It's targeted to a specific group. And the quote I have here from a New York Times article is, after the MOOC mania subsides, because we've all heard that for a number of years, it might actually be that SPOCs are emerging as the preferred model of specialized learning, taking the online approach to smaller, targeted, and revenue-generating classes. So the last slide I have has kind of got nothing to do with the preceding points, but it is an interesting one because it comes from a very recent MIT report. MIT just released this report about a month ago, and it talks about the fact that from their perspective, online learning will increase in terms of scope and breadth. It says that most universities are really committed now to online learning. And I know I have no more time to explain that, but there is a reference on the next slide, so if you're interested, you can look at that report in detail. And just in summary then, at the very end, I just wanted to put this slide up. There's my, my address if you want to contact me. And two things about the address and this slide that are important. First of all, I'm moving next week. I will not be with the University of Phoenix. I will be the president of a community college in the Bahamas, in the Caribbean. One of the reasons that I was hired was that the Bahamas wants to become more online in terms of orientation. I know some of you are from the Caribbean area, so hopefully we can work collaboratively on some of those initiatives. And the very last point is, if you're not aware of it, the University of Phoenix will be hosting the Guide Conference February 15, 16, and 17 of 2017 in Orlando, Florida. So we're looking forward to welcoming you to Orlando, Florida next winter in Orlando as part of the Guide Conference. We hope we can look forward to seeing you there. So I'll pass it on to our next speaker. Thank you.